And another piece fell into the walking path.
Right. Yeah. I saw the yellow tape.
You discussed this, huh?
Really amazing. Bag of pins. What is this? What?
City pins.
Oh.
They lost your on.
Okay. We'll call the regular meeting of the Capitola City Council for March 8th to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Harlan. Here. Councilmember Bertrand.
Here.
Councilmember Peterson.
Here.
Councilmember Bosworth.
Here.
Mayor Termini.
Here. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is being cablecast live on Charter Communications, Cable TV Channel 8, and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. It is being recorded to be rebroadcast on the following Wednesday, 8 a.m., and on Sunday, following the first rebroadcast at 1 p.m. on Charter 71 and Comcast 25. Meetings can also be viewed at the city website, www.cityofcapitola.org. Our technician tonight is Lynn Dutton. As a reminder, please turn off your cell phones. And tonight's meeting is being conducted in honor of International Women's Day. So we will enjoy. And our first order of business is recognition of local government academy participants. And I'll meet you all in the front. Eric Anderson, Mario Beltramo, Yvette Brooks, Helen Bryce, James Duzak, Rose Filizetti, Mary Foster, Les Foster, Leslie Paludes, Stephen Walsh, and Marilyn Warter. Anyone? Come on up. Oh, look, we just about have the full house. I want to make sure we can get the camera in here. Let's see what we have here. First of all, this is a commitment by citizens of Capitola to attend a regular class in the evening to learn just about the workings of city government. And it's also a way for the residents to come to realization that it's not as easy as it looks. And I'm sure you all came away with that. It just looks easy from the outside. So let me give out these certificates of completion. Eric? I don't think we have Eric here. Mario? Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Yvette? I don't think Yvette's here tonight either. I think her husband has the flu. This is small town stuff. Or her cow got out. I don't know. Okay. Helen? Thank you, Helen. James? Rose? Mary?
I'll accept the Mary
Very good.
on her behalf.
Thank you. You deliver that for us?
I'd like to thank the
Les?
I'm blessed.
Yes.
Way to go,
Thank you
Les.
very much.
Leslie? Thank you, Leslie. Stephen, last but not least, and a good member of our library committee. Thank you very much. You add a lot. And Marilyn. Thank you, Marilyn. Also a member of our Finance Advisory Committee. So thank you all very much. And our Vice Mayor is going to pass out lovely commemorative pins because we have an enormous amount of them.
Congratulations. Yes. Yes. And my neighbor?
And I'm going to pass the microphone along just to give me some feedback. How did you enjoy your experience? And Rose, you're always ready to talk for me, so I'm going to give you the mic first.
Actually, I'd like to thank the city for the opportunity to learn more about the inner workings.
Hey, Jacques.
Jacques, you're competing.
Jacques, keep it down.
I just wanted to say I'd like to thank the city for creating this opportunity for citizens to learn more about how the sausage is made, and which provided some real opportunities for several city council meetings past.
Well, I'd like to join Rose in saying thank you, and I learned a lot.
I thought it was a great experience, and it showed me that government is anything but simple.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thank you for putting it on, and I also learned a lot, and I learned that it's a lot more complicated than it looks.
Thanks for the opportunity. Really wonderful taking part with all you folks, learning about the inner workings of the city. And to you, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm presuming 6 students who are out there. My hope is bigger than that, and that one day you'll be up here, and one day you'll be up there. Thanks.
Thank you for the experience. We enjoyed it a lot, and I enjoyed also meeting all the other folks in the class. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent academy. It was really well done and such a great opportunity to meet other people in town and also learn so much about how you stretch the dollar to do all the great things you do for our city.
And thank you very much for inviting us to participate, and I'd like to thank everybody. It made me realize how dedicated you guys are all, so thanks very much, especially police and fire.
And I think Yvette just showed up, so I'll give her the microphone.
Are we talking about?
Thank you.
The academy.
Oh, well.
Thank you. Yeah, the academy.
Yes, thank you. There was an immense amount of knowledge, expertise that I was able to absorb from the time in the academy, and it was just truly great insight for me and a great learning experience. So thank you to everyone that participated.
Very good. And look for this lady's name on a ballot near you coming in November. I think she's going to be one of our candidates for City Council. We're really excited about that. Whenever anyone new jumps into the ring. So thank you all once again. Give yourselves a round of applause. Very good.
Perfect, thank you.
Sit down.
Nicely done.
I now have the pleasure of welcoming Chancellor George Blumenthal, the Chancellor of UCSC, who's coming to give us a little idea of the state of the campus now. Chancellor, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so very much. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate the opportunity to address you. As you said, I want to share some of the things that are happening on campus, and that's one of the best parts of my job. Today I'd like to talk about 3 things. First, a little bit about the roots of the campus, something about where we are as a campus, and then talk about some of the broad strokes of where we're going as a campus. So before digging in too deeply, I'd like to say a few things about the university and our relationship with the greater Santa Cruz community, which I've heard discussed a lot in recent months as we've begun discussing our long-range development plan. You know, many people think of us as the city on a hill, and certainly we are that, a thriving community of scholars, students and researchers perched in a beautiful spot. But over the years, that phrase has come to suggest something fundamentally separate, that there's a separateness of the university from the community. And I'd like to start by addressing that. Because the longer I'm in this position, and I've been doing this about 11 and a half years, the clearer it becomes to me, while we may be slightly geographically apart from one another, we are very much a part of a larger whole. And I did some checking, and here's how interwoven we've become. At last count, roughly 19,000 graduates of UC Santa Cruz have settled in Santa Cruz County and live here. 2 slugs have become county supervisors, and both still are on the board today. We've had 1 Capitola mayor, Dennis Norton. More than a dozen slugs have been mayors of Santa Cruz, while 2 others have led Watsonville. And I have to say, I'm still waiting for the first Scotts Valley mayor, but that's another story. Another of our grads, John Laird, was the Santa Cruz mayor and then an assemblyman, and now serves in the governor's cabinet. So when you look at some of the county's signature businesses that have begun, you see us in them, because these include Cruz-Io, New Leaf Community Markets, Digital Nest, the Penny Ice Creamery. They were all started by UC Santa Cruz graduates. Our K through 12 schools, including the schools right here in Capitola, are brimming with teachers who have come through UC Santa Cruz. And the same is true of our local nonprofit and health sectors. So alums are behind local restaurants, breweries, and wineries. And slugs help drive the arts and cultural scene as well. We're also, at UC Santa Cruz, the county's largest employer. We employ 4,800 people in Santa Cruz County, which is by far and away the largest employer. So why is any of this important? I think it's important because it's evidence of interconnectedness between the university and the greater community. It's high time we got beyond the language of us versus them and started talking more about who we are collectively. In addition, our values, I believe, align quite closely. As a research university, we, just like you, embrace informed, science-based decision-making. We value critical thinking. We care about the environment. Our researchers are at the forefront of studying climate change as well as oceanic research. And the principles of social justice run deeply through our campus, as I believe they do throughout the entire community. We stand for the rights of our most vulnerable, folks like the 400 undocumented students who currently reside on our campus, or our LGBTQ community, or our Muslim students. We value all of our students as important and really righteous individuals. Another thing we share with you are some really vexing problems. Housing, water, and traffic are the three that come to everyone's mind. And I'm sure you spent a lot of time thinking about those problems here in your deliberations. So let me talk about them a little bit. First, housing. Without a doubt, housing is the issue of our time locally. It's true throughout our county and all of our communities. The lack of affordable housing impacts all of us. You, your families, your employees. It affects our students and our staff and our faculty just as much. It affects our ability to recruit and retain the best staff and faculty that we can. So this is a huge challenge. And we all know the factors that lead to it. One is our proximity to the booming Silicon Valley. Another is the pull of our beaches and mountains, which we're so proud of. Another are the vacation rentals and second homes that people have here in our county. Another is years of slow growth or no growth policies that have left us without adequate housing stock. And yes, another cause of this is the university. We as a part of this county have contributed for sure to the lack of housing. But here's something I want you to know, I want the entire community to know. We at UC Santa Cruz currently house 53% of our student body on campus, 53%. That is the highest, I'm sorry, let me correct that. That is the second highest percentage of any public university in the state of California. The only one that houses a higher percentage is the California Maritime Academy, and they use ships. So right now that is the state of things. But we on campus are at capacity. We've converted double rooms into triple rooms. We've taken our lounges and converted them into quads. That is not a sustainable or a practice, nor is it a practice that benefits our students. That said, we know we have to house more students on campus, not only to minimize our community impact, but because it's the right thing to do. And that's why we're doing that. So right now, well underway is the largest housing project on campus we've ever attempted. It's called Student Housing West. Now, let me remind you that the money that we get from the state of California cannot, by law, be used for student housing. It can be used for academic purposes, et cetera, but it cannot be used to house students. So, and furthermore, even in terms of money from the state to build academic buildings, there has not been a bond measure since 2006 in the state of California to support infrastructure on either UC or CSU campuses. So we're trying a new model. We're trying to do something a little differently with this Student Housing West project. And it's a model that other campuses are starting to use as well. So we're not alone, but we are ahead, a little bit ahead of the curve on this. And that's a public-private partnership in order to provide this housing. We have brought in a private developer who will build the project. A private developer who's been chosen, among those chosen by the University of California system. So it isn't just a local choice. It's a choice that's made by the system where we chose from among a group of 8 developers. We will contract with a nonprofit firm that will own the development, and the development team will operate our Student Housing West project. But the key thing is that our student experience will be the same. Our students will not know the difference between who actually owns or operates the facility, because their interface with the facility will be through our student housing office. We are constructing in this project 3,000 beds, and the first units are slated to go online in the fall of 2019. Those beds are largely to house families, graduate students, and upper division students. So those are the 3 populations that we're aiming this at. And as you, I'm sure, know, it's just those populations which have looked to the city of Santa Cruz and the county and Capitola for housing going forward. They're the ones most likely to live off campus. And I think that this project demonstrates our willingness to actually do something, to make a commitment, not just talk about it, because that project is happening. And right now, because of that project, we have more housing in the works right now than any other municipality in this county. So it is the biggest project going on right now. And my hope is that it will make a real difference. And let me just say one more thing about it. The other thing that I really like about this project is that it's scalable. If, in fact, we're as successful as I think we can be, we can do it again and again and again. So this is something that really can be a part of our future. The second big issue locally is water. Water is something I hear referenced a lot, often incorrectly, when people talk about the university. So let's talk about some facts. First, for those who believe that we're huge water consumers, that's actually unfounded. Through diligent efforts, our water use today, right now in 2018, is about the same as it was in 1994 in terms of total gallons consumed on campus. The same as in 1994 when we had half as many students. So we have done a lot to conserve water. Right now we use about 6% of the total demand of the city of Santa Cruz water system. We have ended almost all irrigation on campus. We have done a huge amount of retrofitting of bathrooms, toilets, showers, sinks, and other facilities. And we are always looking for new ways to conserve. So there's yet more things in the pipeline. I'm really quite proud of what we've done on that. The third issue, which I know you have local experience with as well, is traffic. Everyone loves traffic, right? But you know, we have an interesting story to tell there as well, because we actually measure the amount of car traffic to our campus. We measure it on a regular basis. And what we have found is that we are currently below the average number of daily car trips to campus of what we were 15 years ago. So whatever it was 15 years ago, we are below that number today. So the number of daily car trips has actually not increased on campus over the last 15 years. You know, lots of people talk about getting citizens out of cars, but we've actually done it. And we've done it in a number of ways. We have a bunch of different strategies, including tightly regulating parking on campus. Parking is not easy on campus, let me just tell you. Parking permit is really a hunting permit on our campus. We steer staff and faculty to carpools and van pools and try very hard to make that a reasonable option for them. And our employees and our students make up more than half of the entire Santa Cruz County metro ridership. So we are really a key part of the continued sustainability of the Santa Cruz metro system. So that kind of leaves us in the place of what now? What are we going to do next? And as you know, we've started talking about charting our future with a long-range development plan. Without a doubt, it's going to be hard work to do this. It touches on all of the hot-button issues I just mentioned and more. But we're committed to working with the community as we craft this plan. And in fact, I established from the very beginning of this process a community advisory group made up of representatives from a wide range of community groups to provide input as we develop the plan. And that's going on as we speak. And that group has met quite a number of times already. Tonight, we're actually here in Capitola at the Mid-County Senior Center to gather community input on the plan. You can tell our scheduling wasn't that great since we're conflicting, but you know what you know as well, if not better than I do, what scheduling difficulties are. Our goal is to have a draft of this plan late this year, at which point it'll undergo a thorough environmental review. We'll do a full EIR on the plan. This is an opportunity for us to imagine our future, reaffirm our values and our role in the community. We want to explore how to meet the needs of the state, and as I think all of you know, there's a fast-growing population of young Californians who are applying to the UC system in record numbers. We want to do that while also remaining a good neighbor. So, there are some misconceptions out there about what our plan is. There's been stuff in the newspapers, as I think all of you know. I want to emphasize a couple of things. Some people think our plan is an enrollment goal. Some people think it's kind of an approval to expand. It is neither of those. It's a planning tool for providing the infrastructure needed to successfully educate students. To use an analogy which I'm sure you'll understand, it's much more like a city's general plan. It's how you would develop the infrastructure if you're going to develop further. In our planning, we ask ourselves, if we were to grow by a certain number of students, what classroom space would we need? What about labs? How much dining area would we need? What about dormitories? What about athletic fields? We need to plan for what it would be if we were to grow by a certain amount. And the long-range development plan, is an effort to answer those questions. There is, of course, one particular number in the plan that's garnered a lot of headlines, and that's the number 28,000. Because I asked the campus planners to examine a plan that would support that many students by the year 2040. So let me emphasize, that's a 22 years from now. Why did I come up with that number? Was I nuts, or did I have first of all, you need a number. You have to pick some number to work with. You can't just plan in the absence of a number, just as I don't think the city can plan in the absence of imagining what the growth might be. The second point is that this uses our growth trend over the last several years of about 2% a year, and just puts it forward and says, if we just continued growing at that rate, not that I'm advocating for that, but it is the rate that we have been growing, and it seems like a reasonable number to plan for. Our current long-range development plan allows for 19,500 students on campus. Currently, our enrollment on campus is about 18,500, so about 1,000 under that plan. But I think you all know that the demand for UC education and admission to UC Santa Cruz specifically, we're at an all-time high. Low-income and first-generation students are applying to our campus in record numbers. We see an element of social justice in this because we are a public university with an obligation to educate or provide education to any Californian who can benefit from that education. And we also need to accommodate the growing diversity within the California student population as well. So from my perspective, pulling up the drawbridge to higher education and saying, sorry, go away, it's not an option, it's not right, I don't think that's really something we can do. So how do we thread this needle? How do we preserve the special character of Santa Cruz County while also meeting the needs of today's and tomorrow's students? That's, from my perspective, what the long-range development plan has to look at. I can't promise we're going to please everyone, but I can promise we will bring thinking and creative problem solving to the table. We will be approaching this with an open mind. And ultimately, the university understands that we must find creative solutions to vexing community problems if we're to serve a larger student body on the one hand, while being a good neighbor on the other. That's what this LRDP process is about, and that's what I'm hoping it will achieve. So I know your time is limited, so I'm going to stop here, but I'd be most happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, Council?
Just to comment, congratulations on your water conservation. That's very impressive. That's very good. I personally can't get very excited about much more growth in this county until we solve our water problem. We're all looking for a supplemental source of water. And here in our district, we have been declared a critically overdrafted water basin. And so we're working on it. Soquel Creek Water District is working on a plan to try to achieve that, to bring another source of water here. But it's going to be years before that happens. Santa Cruz has water problems. Watsonville has water problems. They have saltwater intrusion quite a ways into the community. So I think until we get that solved, I personally can't support much more growth because we have a difficult situation now, and it's not going to be solved in the next few years. But thank you for your good work.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Chancellor, thank you for sharing the details of your response to the rather vexing problems in this area. So my history actually was, my early history as an advocate was in San Francisco, working to deal with UC Med Center's expansion. So, you know, if we had a chancellor at that university with the same vision that you have, I think at that time we would have had much better solutions to the same problems, relatively speaking. It was housing, traffic, it wasn't water because of Hatch-Hatchie, but those two other ones had a major impact on Haight-Ashbury and the Inner Sunset, as you know. So that's one comment. I think another thing that you've failed to mention that you see Santa Cruz is, I think, should be better known for is a lot of the cultural attributes that are open to this environment. And just to give you an example, last week I was at a presentation where I heard a rather interesting talk of a diplomat from India. And you were there. I remember giving the introduction. I've been to many talks on the campus there, and I greatly appreciate those talks, and I think more people should know about that. Plus, you provide the OLI program for seniors and others in this community so that they can be intellectually involved in many of the things that go on the campus and meet probably hundreds of people, I think, who are involved in that program and stay very active. So I think UC Santa Cruz offers a lot to this community on a cultural level. And your vision for trying to solve some of the problems that we all have to deal with on a daily basis is commendable. I do have one question, though. Any of the programs that you're working on, can you comment on doing things in conjunction with Santa Cruz? That's your immediate neighbor, and I know housing is something they're working on quite a bit, and obviously Ed may talk about his efforts because he did put a lot into the Metro effort to work with you on that. So anything on housing that you've done in conjunction with Santa Cruz?
So first of all, I want to say that, first of all, thank you for your comment about culture and art, and I just want to encourage people to attend things that we offer on the campus. Just last weekend and this coming weekend, Adela Barnes, the actress, is back on campus producing, acting in Raisin in the Sun, which is being performed there. So there's just a lot of things going on all the time. Now, with regard to the city of Santa Cruz, I mean, we have actually developed, I just want to emphasize first that we have developed in the last 10 years a remarkably good and much, much better relationship with folks in the city of Santa Cruz. Our staff work together quite closely on a wide range of issues and meet regularly. So the good news is that, first of all, we have good communications with them, and we've partnered with them. An example of that, which we did maybe 3 or 4 years ago, was we merged the fire department of the university with the fire department of Santa Cruz. And from my perspective, that was a win-win-win situation. I think the city won, the university won, and I think the people throughout our entire region won from that merger. So that's one example of the kind of cooperation that we can do. With regard to housing in particular, that's a much more difficult issue to to bring to a conclusion, particularly since we're so actively working to complete Student Housing West. That's a big deal for us. It's by far the biggest project we've worked on. We have been in discussion with the city on a way of cooperating for particularly low-income staff housing and new initiatives there. There's a group that's been put together to look at that. That includes not just the university and the city, but I think they have representatives from the county and from the health services enterprise locally, as well as from the schools, the K through 12 schools, because we all share that same issue of being able to attract first-class people here with in a way that's affordable given the salaries that we have. So those discussions are ongoing, and I do harbor hopes that we will be able to bring them to fruition. But I can't point to a specific project yet that's been completed in that area. But it's ongoing work, and we're committed to continuing that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chancellor, for coming to see us and speak with us. And I want to tell you, I've had a close association with the university for 40 years, and I can say that in the last 11 and a half, you brought not only leadership but heart to your job. That's a tough combination, and you handle it well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll move on now to report on closed session.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Tremini, members of the City Council. There was only one item on this evening's closed session. That was conference with labor negotiator. The council met with its designated labor negotiator, and those discussions pertain to all bargaining groups. There was no reportable action.
Thank you. Linda, any additional materials?
None.
Ah, amazing. Are there any additions to the agenda?
Staff has no changes.
Very good. We move on to public comments. This is a time when you can come and speak to the council on items that are not on this evening's agenda. So, and here comes our fire chief. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, or good evening, I should say, honorable mayor, members of the council and staff. Just a couple minutes of your time this evening. I've asked the clerk to hand out 2 documents to you, and I apologize for not doing a presentation this evening, but the first is the 2017 annual report for the Central Fire Protection District. The public can view that document online at www.centralfpd.com, and that shows the accomplishments of your fire department over the calendar year of 2017. The second document is an invitation for council and staff and the public to attend our Standards of Cover study release, which is next Wednesday evening, the 21st at 6 p.m., and that'll be held at the central headquarters at 930 17th Avenue in Santa Cruz. And that Standards of Cover was about an 8-month undertaking, and it's a report card of the fire district. It gives us our past, our present, and our future goals and recommendations to move forward with the district itself. One interesting part of that report that I think the council may find very entertaining is the traffic congestion study that was conducted as well as our Standards of Cover. And I think I don't need to tell anybody how the traffic impact in this county is greatly affecting public safety, and it's kind of a scathing part of the report. So with that, I thank you for your time. I'm sorry I have to speak and run, but I'm trying to figure out how to clone myself between two board meetings in the council. So.
Well, you may have to cancel your next appointment. Councilmember Bertrand has a question.
Just one question. Parking's pretty difficult in that area. Do you have suggestions? Can they park across the street at the rec center?
They can park across the street. They can park next door, which is the property that we own just to the west. We'll make sure that there's plenty of parking for anybody that's going to attend that meeting.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Always good to see you, Chief. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on to City Council Treasurer or staff comments. Mr. Treasurer, what do you have to say to us tonight?
Nothing this time.
Very good. How about staff?
I just want to report at the last meeting, council members asked about the newly painted stairs leading up to Depot Hill.
Yes.
We've taken a look at them, and our staff will be out in the next couple of weeks and just painting the risers back to their more traditional gray colors.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Councilman? Yes.
I got a quick comment. I just want to bring Capitola residents up to date on the jet noise and planes flying overhead. There's been a change that occurred in the past month that the planes actually disappeared for about 30 days and went back to flying over Santa Cruz as they used to. It was not a correction by any means. It was actually a mistake by a contractor and some software. And so effective March 1st, they're back now flying over Capitola. There is a proposal with the FAA that they're supposed to make a significant change and reroute the planes. We expect that to happen in August, but the 1 month of peace and quiet was just a temporary blip on the radar. So hang in there till August. Thank you.
Kristen.
I just want to say Happy International Women's Day, and I want to just take a second to acknowledge the young adults that are in the room with us tonight. And as one of our local government academy participants had mentioned, I hope that we will see more of you in the room and maybe even up here as a council member one day. And in case you're interested, several of our boards and commissions now have youth seats, so you could actually sit as a non-voting member of those boards and commissions. So if you're interested, check it out. I believe it's on our website. Yes, it's on our website. Or you can contact me directly, and I would love to speak with you about it.
Thank you. Jacques.
Yeah, yesterday I went to the Second Harvest Festival that detailed just innumerable examples of people that have stepped up to help raise dollars and contributions for people here who have, they just don't have the wherewithal at certain times in their life to provide the food that's necessary for their families. It was totally impressive. Gave out 2 awards, and thank you, Linda, for preparing those for me. I appreciate that.
Stephanie.
As your representative on the sanitation district, there will be a public hearing on Thursday, May 3rd at the district office on Lode Street. Annually, we review the rates and review the budgets, and we increase the rates a little bit every year to cover costs. So the proposal is that single family homes will go up $2.05 a month. Multiple family dwellings will go up $1.89 a month. Mobile homes will go up $1.74 a month. And then businesses have their own special formula, and schools and so forth. But it's not too bad this year. All the residents in Capitola will be getting this mailer, and it's very user-friendly for a change. A lot of times we just send it out and say there's a public hearing, rate change, here's what's proposed to do. But if you get this, read it, because it's very interesting. It describes what we do, and also a big reminder, do not flush any wipes down the toilet, any baby wipes or any kind of personal care wipes. They clog up our system. And on the packages, they say flushable. So we're trying to get the manufacturers to take that off, because they're a problem for all sanitation districts. They clog up the plumbing terribly. So please don't ever flush them down. Just put them in the garbage. The other thing I have for you is a copy of a brochure that was circulating among the Seniors Council, which is the Area Agency on Aging, which is the local agency that is in charge of distributing the Older Americans Act federal funds that each county receives. There used to be state monies available, but those have disappeared. And one of the programs that they are promoting now is called Evaluating Your Age-Friendly Community. And it outlines how you can have a whole program to look at your community and see whether it's friendly to all ages, especially seniors. And one of the things that they ask you to look at are the outdoor spaces in buildings, transportation, housing, social participation, civic participation, community and information, and health services. And so I hope that we can, on a small level, when we find some time, take a look at this and see if there's some things that we can look at to make the community more walkable and more user-friendly for all ages, including seniors. Seniors are the fastest growing group, age group in the state, in the country. There's going to be, all the baby boomers are going to be out there as seniors pretty soon, or they are seniors. And they're going to have special needs for ramps and doors that can open for them at a push of a button and things like that. So we really need to get businesses and a lot of the public buildings up to speed on some of these things. In addition to that, AARP, the Association of Retired Persons, American Association of Retired Persons, has a walk audit toolkit that I'm going to work with Jacques with to walk around the town and see if there's some improvements that we can make, that we can suggest. We're also going to be working on our Americans with Disability Act soon, And that will take into account also barriers that we can remove to make it easier for people to walk if they have a walker or a cane, or use with their wheelchair. So, and if you have anyone has any ideas about this and you'd like to work with us on that, please contact us. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie, for all you do. And once again, you are the queen of flush. You do a lot of work on sanitation. Nobody else wants to touch that committee, and you've embraced it. Jacques, I think, once again, Jacques Bertrand.
Well, now that I've been signed up to be walking with Stephanie around town, I'd like to point out the results of a new study that came out, and you may have heard about it on public radio, but apparently exercise, no matter how old you are, is the key to a higher, better functioning immune system. So sitting in front of the TV watching sports isn't going to do it. Sitting somewhere else and doing whatever is not going to do it. But exercise is a better way for you to be functioning better because you enjoy life, but also your immune system is better. So go out there and walk with Stephanie and I, and we'll get you going.
Thank you, Jacques. I want to call your attention to some flyers in the back for the SoCal Sip and Stroll. It's organized by our Chamber of Commerce. And also the owner of Cowbells, Anita, is at one of the shops down in SoCal. It's a good time. It's on April 21st. There are flyers in the back. You can take one. We had the meeting of the Monterey Bay Community Power Board this week, actually yesterday. Did a lot of significant things. Formed a citizens committee to give us input from stakeholders. That was a great advance. And in addition, we voted to give back to anyone with solar on their roofs more than twice as much as PG&E pays you back for the power you deliver into the grid. So this particular program is already paying off in a big way, and you're going to see more about it. We just turned up the commercial users March 1st. I think June 1st or July 1st is the residential.
July 1st.
July 1st, all the residential customers will come online. This is big news. This was hard to do, and it was one of the singular best things we've ever done. I remember years ago we sat up here and talked about the targets for carbon-based emissions, and that we were going to cut them in half by 2030. Well, I have news for you. With the advent of community power and the power that we purchase to deliver to your homes and businesses, we have reached that goal already, and it's 11 years soon. So whoever said that the world would come to an end as we know it because of this ungodly requirement, we're still clicking along, and we have the power to prove it. We have a nice spread in the Convention and Visitors Bureau, which is now called, I believe, Visit Santa Cruz. So they put out their little magazine this week, and as always, Capitola is prime on places people like to go. And at that, I will stop talking and move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar is an item that's generally taken as a single vote. And tonight we have only one item on the consent calendar. That's the minutes of our last meeting. Anyone in the audience like to pull this item? Didn't think so. Council?
Motion to adopt minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All well. Down to general government public hearings. The first one, conceptual review, Capitola Village Water Festival. Mr. City Manager, let me know whenever you want me to jump in.
Mr. Mayor, I'll keep it relatively brief this evening. Council members, this is a presentation about a potential successor event to the Capitola Begonia Festival. As everybody in the community knows, the Begonia Festival was sort of integral into the sort of identity of Capitola for the last 65 years. And the 4-day event just included a number of wonderful different activities that the whole family to enjoy. Unfortunately, with the loss of the local begonia fields this last year's event was the last Begonia Festival. Last month, the city received a proposal for a replacement event, and staff took the unusual step of scheduling this as a conceptual hearing about the potential event prior to a special event hearing application, which would, if we were to move forward, would be the next step in the process, simply to try to figure out whether or not it was worth the event organizers' time and staff time necessary to put something like this together. We also sent notice of this hearing this evening to the BIA, the CVRA, and to residents fronting the lower portion of SoCal Creek to let them know that we'd be holding this conceptual hearing. As proposed, the Capitola Village Water Festival would be a 2-day event that would take place at the end of September. The activities that are currently proposed include a 5K running race in partnership with the Wharf to Wharf, robo races, sand castles, horseshoes, fishing derby, and then an evening nautical parade with lit floats. In the past, council has indicated a desire that we've maybe reached our limit in total special events in our community, that due to the impacts on staff and the residents, this event wouldn't increase the total number, but it would also be at a new time, which potentially creates another mandatory report day for our police department. So it doesn't come at zero impacts if we were to move forward. So with that, I really don't have much more in the way of a presentation. Really, the question for tonight is this event warranted? There's a community building event, something that's really important to us, or is the event fatigue something that's real and we really want to take into account? The activities that are proposed with this, are these the key elements out of the Begonia Festival that you'd like to see in a future event? And then if you were to direct the proponents to move forward, what would need to happen next would be coordination with Fish and Game, Central Fire Protection District, and then developing a special event permit process to ensure neighborhood compatibility, and ultimately that special event permit application would come back to the council. So with that, I'm available for questions.
Allow me to add a few items. I've been, the committee for this is basically the Begonia Festival Committee, with one significant difference. They have sucked me into it, and I've enjoyed every bit of it. It's great. And I had to, because some of the committees out there, the committee looked at how to make a festival as significant as Begonia Festival, but without the amount of impact. And we heard resoundingly from the community that on Labor Day, we already have 10,000 people in town. We don't need another 10,000. We also heard that maybe over the course of 4 days is too much, and perhaps 2 days makes more sense. And we also pared it down to everyone's favorite 5 items. So that was the thrust of the committee and the efforts they were doing. So any questions of staff? If not, I'll ask the chief to come up, because I have questions, because this, obviously we have public safety issues. We close a street during the nautical parade for a couple of hours, and that's significant. Chief, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Trevany, council, staff. Questions? I'm here to answer any questions you
Well, I'd like to know how you feel. Number one, I know you've been very successful in closing the streets during the fireworks in the last few years. It's gone flawlessly. Kudos to your department. How do you see this as and certainly I expect this not to have as many people as fireworks, but maybe. How do you see this, and what are the challenges in doing it on the last weekend in September?
And thank you for allowing me to discuss some of those issues and potential concerns as best I can, and predicting impact for what might be a new event come the end of September. The road closures are typically the most difficult task. Personnel driven, personnel intensive, and probably the largest impact on the community with regard to the road closures, depending on the event and the length of those road closures, and quite honestly how well we facilitate the closure and the opening of the streets when it's safe to do so. And so certainly with this potential or proposed event, requiring, if it goes that way by your direction, requiring a general special event permit because of the impact, clearly more than 200 people, significant impact I predict on city staff and personnel resources, requiring road closures certainly for the evening event with nautical parade during 7 to 9, as I read in the report here. So there's impact there that it's important that we all recognize, and one of the most important responsibilities of the police department is to do as best we can in creating an operational plan to maintain the safety for the visitors, for the community, and for ourselves as we're staffing these very busy events. I absolutely agree and like hearing that the new group, the former Begonia committee, has thought about cutting it down from 4 days to 2 days. Certainly that manages the impact. I'm a little torn on whether or not a special event not on Labor Day as opposed to Begonia joining Labor Day is necessarily minimizing our impact to staff, because a holiday, 3 of them during the summer season, are handled like special events. They don't require a permit, but there's no time off and there's overtime for all police officers to manage those holiday events during the summer months. And so although we don't gain a number, we go from last year 11 general permits. There was a consideration or direction to add this one, 11 on continuing for 2018. Well, 12 if Ice Skate goes forward. 12 general permits. On top of that, there's 3 holidays and a good number of minor permits, all of them impacting the police department. So we look forward to the direction that's provided to us, and if in fact the decision is to go forward after presentation with another general special event to support this festival, then certainly my commitment and our job as a police department is to make sure that we put together a plan that is effective, that is responsive to the needs of the organizers, certainly, and meet with them on the front side in creating our plan, and that we do it in a safe manner so that the visitors and the festival committee and everybody who attends these events in Capitola is happy and safe. There will be an impact to staff for sure.
Do you anticipate any, are there any benefits to not having the Begonia Festival on Labor Day weekend, or is it just another holiday weekend with the same amount of effort?
Yeah.
Perhaps.
The impact of a holiday weekend is driven by the weather.
Right.
And it seems like for me, after spending my first year here, that each of the holiday weekends in the summer has wonderful weather, and so that's part of the answer to that question. So without the Begonia, if I follow your question, without the Begonia Festival, is the impact the same on that holiday weekend? Is that your question?
Right. And do we have any, does it ease up the staff demands not having Begonia on the holiday weekend? And I'm thinking of closing for the nautical parade, keeping the Riverwalk safe for easily 3 days of activity, where this one, it was very specifically thought out. There'd be a single day of float construction and activity, and that's it, to minimize impact. So does that do anything for staff, or is it pretty much the same?
I think the comparison of this proposed event to Begonia and the activities that lead up to game day is quite less for this event than the Begonia Festival. 4 days versus 2, and less involvement in activities leading up to the weekend. I don't.
But it's still.
I don't understand.
It doesn't minimize your Labor Day weekend challenges.
It does not.
Okay.
It has no effect on the Labor Day weekend challenges. If there were no events on Labor Day weekend from now until the end of time, our impact would be the same for that weekend event, because it requires no time off and officers who are not on vacation coming in and working overtime.
Understood. I see a question from the treasurer.
Yeah, just again from a impact standpoint, it sounds like what you're saying, Chief, is that leaving an event like this on Labor Day would probably be less of an impact than creating a whole new, even though it's only 2 days, event on another weekend.
That's partially correct, simply because the resources are already on board or working for a holiday weekend, and we just had, in this instance, the Begonia Festival, which is large and very challenging on that same weekend. And so, to answer that question in part, the proposed event we're speaking of, falling on an open weekend at the end of September, just adds additional impact on the police department. Not because we're adding another general special event permit, we're not, but we're adding what was an open weekend and not a requirement for staff, for instance, to be called in from time off to properly staff this event.
Understood. Thank you. Any other questions? Stephanie?
Just a statement. I would not want to have it on Labor Day at all, because that was created almost a dangerous situation last year. There were so many people here because of the weather, so many people here because it was the last Begonia Festival, and we had what I consider a dangerous level of number of people in the village and on the beach. I think we were really lucky that we didn't have more problems. When I looked out from the river at the number of people on the beach and it was just packed, I couldn't believe it. I've never seen that many people on the beach, and it made me very nervous, because I know how many officers we have and how many volunteers we have out there and how many explorers we had, and it just wasn't enough. I didn't think that if anything had happened to cover problems. So I would absolutely fight against having it on Labor Day.
Any other
and
questions?
If I can respond a bit, and I understand and certainly appreciate that it may have caused some people, Councilmember Harlan yourself, to be nervous. There was a lot of people for that weekend. Probably more by estimation than there had been in the past.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely confident in the plans that we have in place to properly manage that number of people in our village. Does it present challenges? Absolutely it does. It's very fluid from start to finish, and we have to have the supervision in the right place and the plans communicated early enough so that we understand how to respond to the changes in a given day because of crowd size and crowd activity. Absolutely challenging, but I want to make sure that everyone, including the public, understands that as the Chief of Police, I'm very comfortable and confident in the plans we put together to properly maintain safety for events like that, as many people as
It did make me nervous, and I thought it was too many people for our town. We're so small. The beach is so small. The area is so small. The parking is so small. It just made me very uncomfortable to have that many people in town. I hope it never happens again.
It was a wild weekend.
It was bad.
Any other questions of the Chief? Thank you, Chief. We may call on you again, but I'm going to open it up to the public now. And I know we have Scott McConnell from the Wharf to Wharf. I think you can come up and probably speak first and give us an idea of what the plan is for what is now being known as the Little Wharf to Wharf. I think that's the new name. It may have changed. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you for having me. Just a quick introduction for those who I have not met before. My name is Scott McConville. I'm the event director, the race director of the Wharf to Wharf race, and I just want to say thank you to all of you here, as well as everybody in attendance this evening. The event is put on by the community, so I more or less coordinate the people that put the event on. So thank you all. A lot of you have played a big role in the event. As for this event, we were excited at an opportunity to potentially add a second Wharf to Wharf race to help support our chartered mission. That is to support the health and wellness of the youth of Santa Cruz County through running. So a second running race would allow us to add to the $250,000 a year that we give back to the youth here in town. So as for what this would look like, it is proposed to be called the Little Wharf 3-miler, and it is going to be exactly half the distance of the Wharf to Wharf race, starting at the halfway point over by the windmill by 17th Avenue, and then running the same 3 miles, but instead finishing in the village to lessen the impact on the surrounding adjacent roads to the village. As for the size of the event, we have a proposed capacity of 5,000 people. This is a number that is very manageable for this type of event. It's an event that I've seen many times done at this level. The event would also have a kids race that we don't have for the big Wharf to Wharf race, and the bigger part here is, we were looking for a way to be a part of the community and be a part of something and blend in and be an addition to a weekend like this, opposed to coming in and being our own event on our own weekend. So we're excited at the potential of this possibility of making ourselves part of this great weekend that has been going on for so long. So far, the Board of Directors of the Wharf to Wharf race has approved the event conditionally with forward approval with the various jurisdictions and agencies that are required. Yeah, so I guess that's all I really have. Oh, and I'm just going to give a little update on what the timeline would look like. That's pretty important. So we met with the Begonia Festival Committee. I was in attendance earlier this week, and we kind of laid out what the weekend would look like in a proposed event. Saturday morning is when this would occur, so it'd be kind of the kickoff, the start of that weekend, with the event being 8 a.m. start. This would, with the finish line being in the village, it would allow us to delay our closures to Capitola Village adjacent roads until 7:30. We would need to close the village starting at 4 a.m. to build it out, but the adjacent roads such as Wharf, San Jose, Monterey, Capitola, etc., all those roads would be running as normal through 7:30 a.m. This event, unlike Wharf to Wharf, would be reopening all adjacent roads at 10:30 a.m. opposed to 12 noon when they open up for Wharf to Wharf race. So as in regards to the adjacent roads, they would all be 7:30 to 10:30 for their closures. and then we would have the village closed down from 4 a.m. Through 11:30 or 11 if we can get it open in time. But that's the tentative proposed closures for this portion of the event. It would utilize primarily the beach, so we can keep things off of the village outside of the start and finish line. That way we can open up the village as soon as possible once the people clear out of the area. So that's the event. And does anybody have any questions?
Scott, give us an idea of the scaled down nature of it. Is it safe to say that this is like 25% of the people who would be at the big wharf?
Yeah, something like that. 25-30% of the population. The race is 16,000 people.
And do you envision this drawing local rather than any out-of-state city or country seated runners?
Yeah, so actually this one we are focusing on the local community as well as families. So with the Kids Run component, it's really going to be driving local community and families. We have registration launching for Wharf to Wharf race upcoming, and part of that, if this was to go through, is we would allow locals to have the first crack at registering for the event.
Any other questions, Council? Okay. Anyone else like to come up and speak to us about this? Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
Hey, Dave.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Dave Payton, and I'm a volunteer here in the community. Most of you have worked with me and know what I do. There's a great many questions, obviously, and some challenges that before us. But what I am an authority on is the volunteers and the people that will be pulling this off if we can do it. And so I represent that hardworking, enthusiastic, highly skilled, and willing and able group to take this on. One of our goals, some of them are here, and the people who are there, we've got a couple here, so we've got some people here that are willing to do this. When the Begonia Festival ended last year, some of us coalesced around this idea of continuing it in some fashion. There's some important traditions that the Begonia speaks to, and we're hopeful of being able to do that. And we're looking to your support and indeed the entire community's support to be able to pull this off. Because again, I'll say it every time, it takes a village to do things here in the village, and so we look forward to that. And I've got somebody here. Come on up for a minute if you want to say something. This is a gentleman that I met in town, and he brings a particular skill that we don't have, and that's this is Jack. I'll let him introduce himself, but he's familiar with the lighted boat parade in Santa Cruz. And as we began to sort of develop our ideas, we met and we've recruited him. So anyway, I'll let him talk. I thank you all, and we'll look forward to the results of this.
Welcome, Jack. And I think that it should be noted that not only do you organize the lighted boat parade, but you live in Capitola.
Yes, I live in the village, and so all the different festivals definitely impact me, but that's why I live in the village, and that's what I love about Capitola. That's why I'm a resident here, because we have the marina, we have the wharf, we have art and wine. I'm an artist. I sell art. I race sailboats. I race little boats, big boats. I love racing boats. So I'm really excited to see the rowboat races continued, and we also have some small expansion on that we'd like to do. So I've been doing the rowboat races for years, and I'm excited about contributing to my community in these fun events that we get to do. I think the best thing we get to do is play in the water and have our festivals. So I run the lighted boat parade for the Santa Cruz Yacht Club, which is at the Santa Cruz Harbor, and so I'm familiar with some of the different problems and challenges that presents, and I'm excited to bring my limited expertise to the city of Capitola regarding that event.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to address the council? Come on up, Rose.
I just have a question of him. Time of day.
Come on back, Jack.
Okay.
Oh.
Time of day of this, time of night, I guess.
7 to 9.
Okay, versus when is it done in Santa Cruz?
Well, so when we do it in December, it's generally it starts at about 5:30, and so the daylight is certainly an issue. But I think Mayor Tormini and I have discussed the safety concerns for that issue, and it looks like we're on track to address all those issues.
And we're reaching out to Central Fire's water rescue team, and I think it's something that was missing from the Begonia Festival for many years. Things happen, people are having a good time, but with the addition of the darkness, we're going to be having them on standby as well. Thank you, Jack. Anyone else like to address us? Come on up. Welcome, Tom.
Tom Mader. I'm a resident and have experienced a multitude of begonia festivals in the home that we have on Riverview. And I'm strongly in favor of this idea, but I have grave reservations about the evening portion. Some of my neighbors have suggested it's just going to bring us a bunch of drunks wandering around in the dark. And I would suggest that maybe you've thought of this, but maybe you should go back to the original roots. Back to the days of paddleboards in the afternoon with a much wider variety of participants happily paddling down the creek rather than dragging the floats by walking on the creek bottom, which is a pretty tough thing if you're an aquatic creature. So I wondered if any thought had been given to old school participation the way it originally started. I know Capitola, my kids have been heavily involved in running the junior guards and stuff, and we've got tons of paddle boards, and there's whole bunches of SUPs. It could be quite a fascinating experience to have a daytime old school parade. Some of you have seen the nautical parade that I host every 4th of July down on the creek, and it's just a delightful, low-key way of bringing the neighborhood together. And I think that an evening festival is going to put us over the edge toward Burning Man. I wondered if any of you guys have been to Burning Man lately? Raise a hand if you've ever been. Well, you know the nights out there. It's just crazy. So I'm thinking, maybe we should think old school here. We should get this whole crowd of happy SUPers and paddleboarders and let them happily have an afternoon of parade up and down the way we do informally on the 4th. So that's my suggestion.
Those are very insightful comments, and actually one of them has been embraced by the committee, and that is, this is not just a lighted float parade for floats, it's anything that floats. It's a kayak, it's a rowboat, it's a sup, it's anything at all.
But then you still have the problem of the evening.
And that's a point well taken.
It's just a major accident waiting to happen.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
Anyone else like to address the council? Lori Hill, many-time president of the former Begonia Festival and participant in this endeavor.
Yes, this is Lori Hill, president of the 2017 65th Annual and Final Begonia Festival. This is a match made in heaven. This is a great team. It's composed primarily of Begonia Festival volunteers and new community members that are interested in perpetuating the favorite events of the Begonia Festival and pulling it off the weekend of Labor Day weekend, which became really logistically very challenging for the committee to put on a festival. And I promised the chief that none of these festival organizers will ever put on a festival like that 65th this last Labor Day weekend. That was, yes, the weekends that everybody will remember. But yes, I think the partnership with the Wharf to Wharf team and their family and youth-oriented foot race and the support that they're going to throw this festival team, as well as the support that the existing Begonia Festival Committee board is working to throw to this festival team. This is the continuation of what everybody loved about the Begonia Festival and probably sets aside some of the things that we found to be more challenging. So I encourage Mike and his team. We've got members out here in the group that are a part of that team, and I really encourage you as a city and as a council to throw whatever resources and support you can to this team, because they're rebuilding. They're creating something that we haven't had before, but they're going to keep a community festival going with all volunteers. So please throw whatever support you can to them, because they're going to make another very memorable festival.
Thank you, Lori. Anyone else like to address the council on this? If not, I'll bring it back to the council. And just one correction. I did typify my involvement as being sucked in. I was actually one of the instigators. So in the interest of full disclosure, yes, it's true. Ed, you want to start?
Sure. I've been involved in the Begonia Festival ever since I moved to this town and have great memories. And there's no doubt, as Lori said, the one last year was probably the most prolific event ever held in Capitola. I think the idea by this group to carry on with the festival is admirable. The chief makes a very valid point, though. We are adding, even though our event numbers stay the same, we are adding another week of intensification for all of our city services. So just something to keep in mind that with regards to event fatigue, the number's still the same, so I don't feel like we're adding on to that. But Labor Day by itself stands alone like 4th of July or anything else. So not sure, it does impact all of our city services, so that point has to be made. With regards to the festival itself, I have to say that I share some of the reservations that Mr. Mader made with the nighttime. I'll be honest with you, the nighttime scares me. I've been in the water many times with the Begonia Festival on floats. We had the Begonia Festival down to an art and a science. I mean, 65 years of taking it from where it started to becoming this masterful event. Jumping right into a night event, jumping right into an event that not only involves barges, but now it's going to involve paddleboards, canoes, any device on there. We limited the Begonia Festival with how many people we would allow in the water. That was by intent. We wanted to make sure that safety was the number one concern, and we got so involved with the crowds that even last year we closed down the trestle because we were worried about concerns. We advertise any event in Capitola. There's absolutely no doubt, even with the Wharf to Wharf, we're going to draw a lot of people. Capitola is a big draw for any event. A lighted parade. I can think about when we would build the floats on Saturday night, the number of people that would walk on the paths. It gets pretty crowded. Now, when you turn that into, it's not just people watching the events. This is going to be, thousands of people, clamoring to get a vantage point to watch this event. I really have to, turn the question right to the police department, and unfortunately, the fire department's not even here to weigh in on this. I did talk to Steve Hall yesterday about, have you got any involvement about what you're going to do? And he goes, we're not in the loop on this. So I am gravely concerned about safety in the water. I'm gravely concerned about the impact on our police department for monitoring a nighttime event. The only nighttime event that I can think that we try to pull off around here is we do a fireworks show. And what we do is we kind of pretty much let everybody get to where they want to be, and we shelter in place. We stop everything so that there's not a lot of traffic migration. And this lighted parade going on for 2 hours, and I just have to call it like it is. I mean, the possibility of alcohol, more intensity at night probably increases. I know that people are probably free-flowing during the day, but it's a daytime event versus a nighttime event is a completely different dynamic. So I applaud the enthusiasm for trying to carry on this tradition at Capitola, trying to not let this piece slip away, but I have grave reservations about a night water event. I totally support the horseshoes, fishing derby, sand sculpture, rowboats, and everything else that goes along with that. Being in the water absolutely bothers me, from liability, safety, all those concerns.
I love the idea of the new festival. I think it's going to be fantastic, and as mentioned, I think it's going to be a perfect match for the village and as a replacement for our beloved Begonia Festival. I hear the concerns about safety. In fact, I just looked up what time sunset is in September. And it looks like it's between 7 and 7:30. So perhaps for the first half hour of this, we're not going to be in total darkness. But if there is concern, perhaps we can have a discussion about moving it to a little bit earlier, so maybe that this is a sunset lighted boat parade, and then by the time it's done is when it's dark and people are moving on. But in general, I think it's something that I think we should do it. And if there's concerns, then once you know better, you do better, and then we'll move on in making adjustments for the following year if that comes to be the case. But in general, I think it's a great idea. I'm in support of it and looking forward to it.
Sure.
So I think we forget how many years it took to get to successful Begonia Festival. I doubt the first couple of ones were as we have learned to experience them. So I'm very concerned about the evening one. I think listening to Tom, I think we have to, the committee has to spend some time talking to the neighbors on Riverview. I think we owe that to the residents who will be the most greatly impacted. So thank you, Tom, for sharing those concerns with us. And I have no doubt the committee has already thought of doing that, knowing the people that are involved in it. I would like the committee to come back with some plans after they've been reviewed by the police chief and the fire chief. Some of the concerns that Ed talked about, I think, are viable, are very concerning to me. So I'd like to see a plan that's actually developed ahead of time and then reviewed. It's lucky that we have someone that's already done the Santa Cruz light boat parade, which my wife and I have participated in. It's a wonderful event, but those are big, huge boats, and they're not small ones with potentially kids on it, lost in the darkness and stuff like that. So I think some of the issues are a little bit different, and they have to be thought out ahead of time. So I'm for this event, definitely, and I don't think it was one day after the Begonia Festival started, that you started coming around saying, we're planning for another one. So don't tell me this, you were stuck to that. You were planning before it even...
confessed already.
You really did. I mean, this guy is Mr. Enthusiasm, for sure. And that's a hallmark of Capitola, and that's a hallmark of the people that have been involved in the Begonia Festival. And I think that enthusiasm will take us forward and meet the challenges. And we have some expert help on the low biplane, so I think that's going to be a real plus there. So thanks for that recruitment. Thanks for jumping in. I'm glad you're a part of Capitola already. So just talk with the neighbors, come up with a plan that meets the review of our police chief and the fire chief. It's good that we're going to have people from Santa Cruz to monitor the aquatic issues, so I feel very good about that. They've helped us with Junior Guard, so I think we're on the right path.
Stephanie?
As a nurse, I completely agree with Ed. Nothing else to add. He said it all.
About the nighttime part.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just wanted to, because there's a lot of things that a nurse can agree with Ed on.
But it should be during the daytime. It would make me very nervous to have it at night.
Okay.
Knowing what goes on in Capitola Village at night.
This is all really great because what I'm seeing is a general consensus. The event is great, but the biggest concern is the evening nautical parade. And because the next time it comes back, the festival committee will be asking for a special event permit and wanting the greatest chance of success, I think that it's going to take some time for the committee to really think through the evening portion of it. And I think that it's not a deal breaker. And it's certainly good points brought up by Tom and Ed and Stephanie. So we'll have to go back to the drawing board and look at this a little further. But I'm really excited and appreciative of the council all being in support of this event. Ed?
Yeah, I don't want you to take my comments the wrong way. I'm excited about the event. I have concerns, and what we're supposed to do tonight is provide direction. And my direction is I would just like to get more on board with the police chief, fire chief, and Jacques mentioned the same points. Come back. And I'm kind of inspiring them to come back and convince us that this is going to be a safe event.
And whether or not the committee even decides to pursue the evening portion and not change it to a Sunday afternoon regatta. Jacques?
Ed mentioned fire and police, the neighbors.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jacques, all of the above. On
Yeah.
everything that was mentioned tonight, this was kind of like a brainstorming session for us to provide direction, and I think we accomplished that.
Okay. Knowing the people that have been on the Begonia Festival for as many years as I've been here, 20 or so, I know that's going to be done, but we have to say it publicly.
Right. Mr. City Manager, you have anything to add, or are we given enough? I'm sorry, Stephanie?
Well, and just something to think about. Are we doing this as a local community event for locals? Because if we are, then we'll get lots of kids out there and lots of families and more people participating in it. Whereas if it's a big glitzy event at night, then we're going to draw people from out of town. I'm not sure if we need to do that again.
I think the comparison with Tom's now famous 4th of July regatta is a good one, because I know the people who participate in that, and that is truly a local family, have a good time event. Mr. City Manager, anything to add?
No, I think we're good.
You seen what we had to say. Thank you, Festival Committee. Thank you, neighbors and friends. And as usual, we'll tread carefully. Move on to the next item.
Tread carefully?
Or float carefully. Next item on our agenda is the Santa Cruz Regional 911 Center update. And I believe we have our director here to speak with us.
I'll go very quick introduction while Dennis comes up to the podium. Dennis Kidd is our general manager up at Regional 911. City of Capitola is a member of a Joint Powers Authority. Dennis has been our general manager up there since 2012, and he's been a member employee, worked for Regional 911 since 1996. So he's just getting his feet wet up there at the center. With that, I'll turn it over to Dennis, our GM.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm going to do a quick presentation for you today. I'm passing out a copy of the presentation if you guys want to take notes as reminders for questions. This hopefully won't take very long.
Thank you.
Okay, so my name's Dennis Kidd. I work at Santa Cruz Regional 911. I've been up there for 22 years. Prior to that, I spent 10 years in public safety communications in the city of Huntington Beach in Southern California, and I've been the general manager at Santa Cruz Regional 911 for the last 6 years. So we are a consolidated emergency communication center. I know some of you have visited us before. I'm not sure if all of you have, but I certainly remember way back in the old days I actually sat with Stephanie when I was a dispatcher, and she came to visit us. So we're consolidated. We provide 911 and public safety dispatching services for all of Santa Cruz County and all of San Benito County, so we're multiple counties. We were formed in the early 90s as a Joint Powers Authority, and we opened our doors in June of 1996. We provide 911 and dispatching services for fire, EMS, and law enforcement agencies throughout both counties. The only exceptions to that is the Scotts Valley Police Department and UCSC Police Department. They have their own small dispatch centers, but every other public safety agency in both counties are managed by us. We're 24-hour staffed, of course, so we're sort of the catch-all for after hours. So we're your after-hours public works dispatch, just like the county and just like the city of Santa Cruz and all the other agencies. We're always open. So we are a Joint Powers Authority, so we have 4 member agencies. So essentially what a member agency is the owner of the Joint Powers Authority. So our 4 member agencies are the City of Capitola, the City of Watsonville, the City of Santa Cruz, and the County of Santa Cruz. My board of directors is made up of the CEOs of each of those agencies. So Jamie's one of my board members, along with Martine at City of Santa Cruz, Charles at Watsonville, and Carlos Palacios, who's the CAO at the county. We also have user agencies. So user agencies are contract agencies. So essentially they're all on 3-year contracts with us, as opposed to member agencies, like I said, are owners. So our user agencies are all of the 8 fire districts in the county. So that's from Boulder Creek all the way down through Central Fire, Aptos, everybody in Santa Cruz County. AMR, who provides paramedic services for Santa Cruz and San Benito counties, 2 different operations, same company. And San Benito County Sheriff's Office, and also Hollister Police and Fire. Our stats from just last year, we processed just under 600,000 total phone calls. Of that, 155,000 of those were 911 calls, and of those 155,000, 75% of them were cellular. So that's a trend that's continuing over about the last 10 years, where it's really flip-flopped those numbers between cellular calls. We took those 600,000 telephone calls, we turned them into about almost 450,000 calls for service. So those are calls we actually dispatch on the radio to somebody to respond to a location. Of what we do, about 85% of what we do is law, and 15% of what we do is fire and EMS, and that's just sort of standard for public safety. There's our comparison of calls for service from 2016 to 2017. I have Capitola highlighted there, so you can see that Capitola had a 13% increase in police calls for service in 2017 compared to the year before, and most agencies went up, which is a trend that we continue to see. And overall, we were up 6.5% for the year in calls we dispatched. We have just under a little over a $7 million budget. We share the cost of that budget. We're not a taxing authority, so we actually get contributions from our member and user agencies. And the cost-sharing formula is a complicated formula that breaks down to Capitola being about 7.63% of our overall budget. So Capitola's total cost for last year was just under $470,000 for our services. And you can see the charges for all the other agencies we dispatch for, too. Other stuff we provide, so starting last year, we were one of the very first communities to start accepting text to 911. This was a pet project of mine. It was very important to me that there's one demographic of people who've never had direct access to 911, and that's the hearing impaired community. They've always had to go through some sort of translation service, no longer. So they have the ability now to text 911 directly, and it comes right into our center, and it essentially is a chat session between our dispatchers and whoever's on the other text. Of course, there's other applications for text. If you are in an unsafe environment where you don't want to be loud, you don't want to make any noise, you're hiding in the closet, text to 911 is a perfect example for that. If you are in an area where you don't have a good cell service, but you can still get a text out, mountain biking, I like to point out, like a Nicene Marks or a SoCal Demonstration Forest, you can send us a text there if you've crashed or you're injured or something. So it's good for everybody, and we're trying to publicize it more and let people know. We don't want people texting just because they think it's easier, because it's not a good, efficient form of communication. But if you need to, we have the ability to accept those. We also manage what's called iPods. So for us older people, it used to be called the Emergency Broadcast System, then it became the Emergency Alert System, and now it's iPods, which is generally all devices. So an iPods, a good example I like to point out is if you've ever got a Amber Alert on your phone, that's essentially through iPods. So you don't have to do anything, you don't have to subscribe to anything. If you're in a certain geographic area and we need to get a very important message out to you, you will get that on your phone. iPods is limited to immediate threat to life situations. So knock on wood, we've never done one in this county. Immediate threat to life would be something, a tsunami we know is coming, an active shooter, something like that, and we haven't had to do one yet. We've only been active on iPods for a little over a year. A little bit less severe than iPods is what's called our Code Red Reverse 911 system. So that's when we just send a message to the community. Sometimes it's shelter in place because there's somebody prowling in backyards in the neighborhood. Sometimes it's be on the lookout for a missing child, those kind of messages. So we also have the ability to put those messages out. Code Red is different than iPods in a sense. You have to subscribe to Code Red. It doesn't automatically go to your phone unless you subscribe to it. So you can do that on the website. Go to our website and there's a link, or it's also an app on your phone where you can put that Code Red on your phone. We also provide a service called Pulse Point. So we've done Pulse Point for I think 3 or 4 years now. What Pulse Point is, it's essentially a way to get people who are trained in CPR to know where CPR is needed. So if we take a call for service that indicates the patient is pulseless and not breathing, as soon as we create that call for service and the emergency responders begin responding, anybody with a Pulse Point app on their phone and walking distance to that person will get notified that there's a person needing CPR, where it is, where the defibrillator is, and then they have the ability to walk over there and provide care while the responders are coming. So it's a great service, and then we started doing that a couple years ago, so that's available too. We also are the managers of your records management system. So the city of Santa Cruz, the city of Capitola, and the city of Watsonville combined their police departments for one records management system. So they share that records management system, and we provide the service and the support for that system. So upcoming challenges from our organization, there's something called Next Generation 911, which is going to be probably going live here in the next year or so. And essentially what that is taking the cellular data part of your phone and being able to connect that to 911. So it'll give us better location on your phone. Right now when you call 911 on a cell phone, we get a latitude, longitude, which isn't super helpful to most people. Next generation, essentially, we'll go back to getting an address based on what parcel your phone is actually in, and we'll get an address. So it'll go back to the way it was before there were cellular phones. So that's really good news for our staff, and we'll speed up the call-taking process. One of our biggest challenges is maintaining our staff and having a stable workforce. It's an extremely hard job. I know if you visited and you spent time up there, they work very, very hard, and it's a difficult, difficult job. So over the last 5 years, we've seen our calls for service go up about 16%, and our 911 calls go up 26%. So we're continually trying to maintain our staff to cover the increasing demand of our services. We're unique in the fact that we have no control over our inputs. People call us, we can't tell them not to call. Officers do stuff on the radio. We just are there waiting for them to do it, and we can't turn it down. We can't close the station. We can't shut down. We can't do any of that. So we're sort of at the whim of the inputs, and we have to try to maintain with that. As part of the staffing issue is training. So from a person, brand new hire, to fully trained, it's about a 7-month process. So if you consider our staffing and how we have to staff, if we have an opening, we have to pay overtime to cover that opening, and we have to hire somebody to train, and it takes 7 months for that person to train. So you're paying them to train, plus you're paying overtime to cover the whole. So it's a challenge, and that is going to be our biggest challenge, I think, coming up for the next few years, especially as the unemployment rates in the country continue to go down and not as many people are looking for work. And again, it is an extremely difficult job. So that's all I have for you guys. So I'm available for questions if any of the council members have questions.
Chuck?
Yeah. So so you have some local people, and then you have some San Benito and other agencies. So is the cost completely ratioed per use, or is that a load on the system to some extent to provide, say, to out-of-county agencies?
Yeah, no, the cost-sharing formula is equally spread across every agency based on essentially use and the personnel it takes to manage that agency.
Okay, so the number of local ones is pretty much reference to the budget allocated? Because you have user agencies like fire districts, 4%, so like AMR 6.5, so it's ratioed according to the budget?
According to use, yeah. So that percentage is based on their calls for service that we measure every 3 years. We go back 2 years, measure their calls for service. And so essentially the use of our agency is mimicked in the calls for service, or I mean in the cost sharing percentages.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. So Watsonville went down 2.53. Did Watsonville do anything? Did they have any plans or programs going in place that might have
I don't think so. It's always interesting to try to determine why an agency went up or went down. I think Jamie sort of had a revelation recently that you get a new police chief, generally your calls for service go up, and what that essentially means is that your officers are being more proactive.
Okay.
So one of the things we looked at this year, I have annual reports. This is annual report night for you, so I have an annual report I'm going to pass out to you guys when I get through here. But you can see in our annual report, we measured the officer-initiated calls for service. So a police officer essentially has two ways they create a call, or they respond to a call for service. Somebody calls 911 and we tell them about it, or they see something and they go do something. So those are the proactive calls. They do a car stop. They see somebody they want to contact. When staffing levels are down because of budget issues or whatever for the police department, you see the officer-initiated calls for service go down because they just don't have the time. So when we measure calls for service and we see an increase, we often wonder, did they add staff that year, or maybe they got a new police chief and everybody wanted to impress the police chief, so they're working a little, I don't know. Those are speculations, and it's really hard to determine what created an up or down rise other than just sort of breaking down the calls and seeing what call types were more active or others. So I don't have a good answer why Watsonville went down. I don't think it was a strategy. I don't know. I don't know quite frankly.
Okay, one last question. So the consolidated records management system, I have no doubt that has reduced costs for the partners. Can you comment on that?
It has. They've been together in a records management system without the county. The sheriff has their own records management system, and the 3 cities have been together in a records management system for a number of years. We're going out to look at a new system coming up next year. And we're going to bring the county in on that system too. So this is going to be a county-wide consolidated system, which is very good for everybody because we get a very powerful system that we divide up costs, and the city of Capitola, for instance, being the smallest percentage, will have the same powerful system as the sheriff's office. They'll just pay less for it because of the way we divide costs. So that's been extremely successful and a good way to share costs and still get the expensive technology, but not have to carry the full burden. So going forward, we are looking at bringing the county in and having all law enforcement agencies, with the exception of Scotts Valley Police and UCSC Police, be on the same records management system throughout the county.
Thank you.
Stephanie, anything? Ed? Ed.
Quick, Dennis, thanks for what you're doing up there. Thanks for your presentation. Pulse Point, I got it on here,
nice.
so
Very good.
great for that. I think all these things that you're doing, they're revolutionary. I mean, we've come a long way from the beginning of 911, and this is just great stuff. So thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Kristen, got anything?
Just thank you for your presentation. I came up with Councilmember Harlan, when was that? Last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it was last year that we came up and toured. I was really impressed. It was really fun to kind of sit and listen to the 911 calls come in and see how they handle it. And I don't know how they do it, with something in their ear and then a phone to pick up and then a radio going off, and it was overwhelming just hearing it. So it was very impressive to see.
They're magical.
To see it handled.
They are.
Absolutely.
They're very talented group of people, and they're great humans too. I like to point out always.
I'm glad everyone's taken the opportunity. Now, Jacques, if you've done
I've been there.
a sit along, okay.
Yeah, no, we had a great discussion. You were looking for a UPS at the time. So
Oh, right, yeah.
Give you some advice.
We've
on
done that, yeah.
Pretty amazing place. I've been honored to be involved in it when myself and a team of other contractors built the building.
Right, I remember.
And turned it up, and it's an amazing thing, and it's also at a little over 7% of your budget. Capitola's got a great deal because they have the highest technology and best response for a relatively small amount of money.
Thank you.
For a city our size. And I'm sorry if Dennis Norton's listening, but it's just the way it is.
We're unanimous.
Thank you for.
And we're unanimous. Thank you very much, Dennis.
Okay. And I'll give the annual reports.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
If they make it to the end.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve, you have our PMI, our Pavement Management Program.
Seems to be annual report night. Mayor Termini, council members, here to give you an update on our pavement management program. We did a recent resurvey of our streets in 2017, and we go through the results and then talk about the projects we have on the books right now that will impact our pavement condition. So in June 17, they actually went out and surveyed all the sections of streets in the city. This is a breakdown of our streets and their condition. So for the arterials, we have 9 miles of arterials, which makes up about 20 lane miles, and is about 40% of our entire area of pavement that we have in the city is in our arterials. The pavement condition for our arterials is very good. It's at 78%, or 78 out of 0 to 100. Our collectors, we have 3.3 miles of collectors, about 7 miles of lane miles. That's only 14% of our area. We don't have a lot of collectors, and their PCI is 66. Shouldn't surprise anybody. The majority of our roads are residential roads, where we have 13.5 miles of residential roads. They're all 2 lanes, so there's only 26 miles of lane miles. They make up 47%, the largest percent of area pavement, and their pavement condition index is 55. So overall, the city has a pavement condition of 65. Just to give you an idea where that sits, between 70 to 100 is good to very good. From 50 to 70 is fair. Below 50 becomes poor, very poor. So 70 is the target most cities aim for, having an overall pavement condition of 70. We're 65. We're headed in the right direction, as this shows. We've kind of bounced up and down as we've gone through highs and lows of the economy. Back in 2001, we were at 71. We dropped to a low of 56. In 2006, kind of rebounded to 66 and then dropped back down, and currently at 65. Kind of averaging out here around 63. We just like to get that average up and down to closer to 70 as we move forward. Just looking at the kind of breakdown by condition. We have 57% of our roads are in good or very good condition. And then the other three are about equal, right around 13 to 14% between poor, fair, and very poor, pretty evenly distributed there. So looking at the budget needs, based on this report, I was asked to give an average that we spend per year on our PCI. Obviously, it fluctuates with our capital improvement program. We'll see less fluctuations in the years coming with the Measure D and SB1 funding that we'll be getting, but we kind of came up with a $400,000 average we spend. If we continue kind of spending how we are, in the next 10 years, we'll probably drop back down to below 60 with our pavement condition index. If we want to keep where we are at 66, we would need to spend $650,000 a year to hit that magical 70 PCI. Citywide would take $760,000 on average for the next 10 years. And then this one's kind of an interesting one. It's keeping the arterials and the collectors where they are, which is at a 78 and a 66, but raising all the residential roads to a 70, or not all of them, but the average to a 70. That would take $870,000 a year. So now I'm going to run through the projects that are funded or have scheduled to receive funding in the next 5 years. Kind of give us an average of where we're at and what we're spending. So the first is the citywide resurfacing project. This is going to be a slurry and microseal project throughout the city. It's a $425,000 budget. It's fully funded and targeting a bid date of April 26th, so it gets built before this summer. Bromer Street complete street project. It's that's from Bromer Street from 41st to the city limit, just past 38th. It's a complete street, which means it'll include all pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicle facilities on it. It's a $770,000 project. We were recently awarded a $470,000 RSTP grant from the RTC. That funding is going to be available next fiscal year. This project's also scheduled to get $300,000 in Measure D funding next fiscal year. So as you can see, that makes it a fully funded project, and we will be moving forward and hopefully have construction in fall of 2019. 42nd Diamond Ruby Court was all scheduled for paving when we did Park in Monterey. Fortunately, the pricing that we got, we had to delete these projects. It's 80% designed, although we're not taking it to 100% design until we get more funding for it. It's about a $750,000 construction cost. We've identified $450,000 of that coming from Measure D and SB1 in 2019 and 20. Clare Street Complete Project is a $1.7 million project. It involves a lot of traffic calming and drainage improvements, and we'll have quite a bit of community outreach as we move forward with it. We have applied for a $1.66 million CDBG grant. We anticipate getting notification of award at the end of this month. If we are successful with that grant application, construction will be in fall of 2020. Next is Fanmar paving and drainage improvements. We completed a preliminary design study which kind of analyzed the road condition and the study and the drainage and how to improve both of those. We estimate the cost right now between $450,000 and $500,000. Once again, looking at our 5-year projection of Measure D and SB1 funds, it's scheduled to get $400,000, so almost fully funded in 20 and 21. And the last project that was in our 5-year packet was a McGregor Drive Complete Street project, which is putting in pedestrian, bike, and pavement improvements along to McGregor Park. Rough estimate now is $1 million, and it is scheduled to get $450,000 from Measure D and SB1 in 21-22. So those are all looking out pretty far. So over the next 5 years, we have $5 million in projects. About $3 million of that's going toward paving. All the rest is going to drainage improvements or sidewalks or other things that just aren't pavement related. That averages out $3 million to $600,000 per year. So we go back to this slide. We're not quite keeping even, although I think with additional funding that will probably come available, we'll be able to maintain our PCI of 66 as we move forward. And if we focus on residential streets to a certain extent, where we're probably the lowest, that will help maintain that at least 66 moving forward.
Does that include the CDBG grant?
Yeah, so of that grant, I forget the number, it's about 600,000 of that's paving. It's not all 1.7 million is going into new asphalt on the road. So that's why but
you're assuming you're going to get that grant.
That's assuming I'm getting that grant, yes.
Can we make sure we have
assume
that?
Positively here.
Yeah, we've been very, very good with CDBG grants.
We have, although this is the first time we've applied for a capital improvement project through them. We've gotten, certainly, planning has done successful housing grants and things like that, but this is our first capital project with them.
Mr. City Manager, can you make sure during budget time you remind us of all this by including that slide that had all the different amounts and what the PMIs would be?
That one?
Yeah. And Mr. Treasurer, it takes like 4 to 6 years to be able to say CDBG easily. Just want to let you know that. Stephanie.
Any RTC money available?
So there will be, SB or Measure D funding comes through the RTC, but there will be RSDP grants. Those are all competitive grants. They come and go with the economy. I really wouldn't want to plan on anything, and I haven't mentioned anything here. Obviously, we got a RTC grant for the Bromer Street project, but there's nothing program that we can count on except for Measure D.
Yeah, because we have gotten it in the past, but I know they're very competitive.
Yeah, we've gotten it.
The STIP grants.
Yeah, the STIP grants.
Regional Transportation Commission. For
yeah,
the
so the last 4 years, there's been no STIP funding that's gotten to the county. It's all been tied up at the state level. So
diverted it.
Yeah.
It's for gas tax, isn't it?
Well, the gas tax fund, so now that's why Measure D and SB1 were put into effect, because that's really a way to stop them from taking us or give us another funding source besides the STIP grants.
Yeah, because we used to get, just for the audience, we used to get money from the gas tax that we could use to fix our roads, but apparently it's been diverted at the state level.
No, the gas tax is separate from the STIP. We still get a gas tax. We get about $200,000 a year in gas tax. We use that for patching, striping, and it actually pays for the power for our streetlights and our traffic signals. So power and maintenance for those. So it's not a great deal amount. It really doesn't do much for our capital improvement program.
Ed,
do you have a breakdown of how much Measure D funds and SB1 funds we expect to get?
About 300 in Measure D per year, and 150 in SB1 funds per year.
So we anticipate 450,000 total from those, give or take. Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Anyone from the public like to address us on this item? Oh, Jacques, go for it.
Yeah, okay. So Bromer's one block long, right?
It's a block and a half, yeah.
Okay,
we're doing,
that's an awful lot for that street. So what's the issue with Bromer?
Big part of it is sidewalk.
Okay.
We will be building sidewalks along 70% of the northern side of it, which aren't there now. And then there's some drainage improvements we need to include. So it's.
Is it an overlay?
No, it's going to be a total
Go
reconstruction.
look at it. It's in terrible shape.
Oh, no, it's in horrible shape. I'm totally aware of that.
We're also going to try and find another way to divert traffic without the pylons that are there.
Okay. And
Harlan's mentioned those in the past.
do we need to work with Fairfield or?
Well, we'll need to coordinate construction with them.
Because they have deliveries and all that sort of stuff. Okay. So I read your report with interest. You did mention, I guess, newer technologies that talk about microfibers that make overlays longer lasting, I guess. Has that been budgeted in, or are we going to be taking advantage of that technology? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so in the actual citywide street project we have going out, we're doing some microsurfacing. It's a kind of a step above the slurry seal, costs about twice as much. Instead of $2 a square foot, it's $4 a square foot, but it does give us a much longer wearing surface, and it can be done on roads that aren't in kind of lower, more degraded roads, I guess is the best way to put it. And a few cracks with the microsealing will cover those. So we are trying to use the most modern technology that are out there.
Okay, that's good to hear. So one of our entrances to downtown is Monterey going down the hill. That's pretty bad. What's that PCI?
Come on, give me a minute.
Oh, well, that's okay. Yeah, but it seems to me it's probably in its 50s or something like that. It's really bad.
So I will mention in the appendix that was included in the staff reports a list of all the streets, first by alphabetical order and then by rank of PCI. So 32.
32. Oh, my God. Ed got it. Okay.
Yeah, 32.
Yeah, I should have looked it up earlier. I didn't know about that. So that's our entrance to Capitola. It'd be nice to get that done, so it looks really cool. Just saying.
Try and add that into the list. Yes.
Yeah, add that into the list. I'm sure budget time will.
Right.
Yeah.
Great.
Topaz traffic calming, I didn't see that in the list of things. That's something that's not being considered yet.
These were just our paving projects where we'll actually be going through and repaving streets.
So that would be in a separate...
Yeah, that's a separate traffic project that doesn't affect PCI.
Great. Seeing no one from the public and no further comments, thank you. We received the report. And we'll now hear from Larry for the fun report.
They've all been
The biggest fun person in the world, Larry. Staff person for art and cultural.
All right.
Party man. Artist extraordinaire.
Oh, let me make sure I get this correct. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I am here to give the Art and Cultural Annual Report, but Mayor Tomini, as the chair, would you like to step in? And
No,
okay, I couldn't remember. In the past,
we've actually tag teamed in the past.
Okay,
so go on it.
Okay,
and I'll jump in if I feel anything burning.
Excellent. We'll try and cover everything. So thank you very much for having us talk about the Art and Cultural Commission. It's an absolutely wonderful commission. The things that are very obvious the commission does with the concerts and the movies and things like that. There's so much more that goes on, including, as we see, artwork in the chamber here, and that's part of the permanent collection. The commission's purpose is to advise the council on the allocation of the public funds. And as we remember, the public art funds come from commercial projects in excess of $250,000, and that's how the public art funds get collected for public art projects, as well as general fund contributions for the events and other things like that the commission administers. Some of the highlights for this year: we've had some absolutely wonderful concerts. The picture on the right is the Capitola railing in progress. I actually took a trip up there to as part of the we wanted to have someone come make sure it was before they went into the next step of galvanizing, and it is unbelievable. The scope of this project is I couldn't fathom the length and everything. It is going to be tremendous.
This is going to be a new railing on Lower Capitola Avenue.
Yes, right. Yeah, 300 block of Capitola Avenue.
Highly visible.
Absolutely. And so the bottom picture is this year. The movies were by far the biggest crowds we've seen. They were the selection committee did a fantastic job of picking movies that really met the needs of the public. Tons of kids. So it was wonderful. The biggest event we do is the Twilight concerts. We've moved to 13 concerts. June through August. The genres are all over the roadmap, so that way we get a lot of rock and roll, but we also get a lot of things like swing and big band and salsa. So we hopefully we find something for everyone out there. The musicians most of the musicians are from the county, but a number of them do come over from over the hill and Central Valley. So it's a desired place to play. I mean, it's a very unique venue. Not many places that they get to play where, you know, the ocean's just there. As they're playing, they look over the beach. So we get a really a great number of bands want to play here. And the way it works is the sponsors pay for the bands. The city pays for the sound and some other things, and then the Art and Cultural Commission sells T-shirts out there, and we get the local sponsors, especially in the village and other restaurants, really want to help sponsor these events. Here's just some pictures of what went on. We always have tremendous crowds. Didn't have quite as one big band as we've had in the past, but they pretty much a lot of the crowd depending on the weather. And last year, I think we had a couple concerts that were cold, but other than that, it was fantastic weather. And as soon as that happens, you know, people are dancing. Another event that a lot of us I don't see as much because it is on the weekend, but you hear fantastic things about Sunday art and music at the beach. We actually have someone that basically runs this for the city. She finds artists. She's been doing it for a number of years. Very successful. Music was added a few years ago, and it's a great combination. The music tends to be a lot more intimate, maybe is the word, than the Twilight concerts. So it's nice for a lazy Sunday afternoon. But we don't get as many people for it, but you know, it's a good mix. People that are interested in both art and music come down there and have a great afternoon. Again, what we talked about earlier, the movies at the beach. You know, as you can see by the movies, they do a great job, and it seems to me, you know, in the short time I've been doing this, the access to very recent movies has become more common. It used to be that the studios like to hold on to the right just released movies, and now they're allowing folks like us to be able to play them. So Moana was maybe a year old, and we were able to get that, and it was a great concert. This year we did Chasing Mavericks, and we had the J. Moriarty Foundation out, and they talked about you know, how it meant so much. So that was a great crowd, a lot of passion involved with that group, and it was great to have them there. Plein Air. This is kind of a new event, but it's getting bigger and bigger every year. The groups, for a weekend in November, you see people painting around town. The interaction between the artists and the people out there is becoming, I think they're really liking it. The first couple of years, actually the first year wasn't, you know, people didn't know what to make of it, but you see the conversations that are going on as these folks are creating this artwork. One of the ways to indicate, we've kind of limited it just based on the number of people that can fit, you know, both painting in the city as well as the venue to 40. But it's gone from, you know, we took everybody the first year to we had over 80 folks apply this year for the 40 spots. So that it's becoming well thought of, and you know, for the artists, they've been able to sell quite a bit more the last couple of years. And here's a couple examples. One of my favorites is the bottom picture, where they took a great picture. If you see the live and then the painting right next to it, and the winning professional piece of art is hanging in the council chambers right now. And I will say you can just see the overall quality of the artist is getting better and better. Opera at the Beach. I'm not sure if anyone's had a chance to attend, but this is a pretty unique event. The pictures, I couldn't find some of the in-progress pictures, but it's a professional opera crew, a troupe. I forgot the correct term, but you know, they give, in fact, before this, they're doing something up in San Francisco where they're charging $20 per head, and they're doing this for free. And not only that, a professional orchestra is playing down, you know, maybe not in the ideal certain, but they have a great time. You know, I keep on trying to find, making sure they're okay, because it's not really where they normally play, and they love it. You know, they're down at the beach. One change we did make this year is we moved it up a little bit. The first couple years it was a 2:00 event, and we moved up to 12, and it simply is the direction, the angle of the sun. You know, in the afternoon, later on in the afternoon, the sun shines directly into that bandstand, and those folks are wearing significant costumes. So that was a big change. If you're sitting out there watching it, you wouldn't have noticed that much of a difference, but on stage they felt it. So that's the plan moving forward, is that it's a noon event. And so everything that was, and the crowds again, actually, it was interesting. We actually had a bus, one of the tour buses, pull up in front of the event, and they brought people down from Berkeley. They chartered a bus to come down to the event, which I was shocked, but they were here and they weren't relatives of so they heard about it, they chartered a bus and they came down. So obviously it's getting out. One of the things is we're not necessarily quite in tune with that group. We're trying to find some partnerships because it is a bit of a different audience than we see with the concerts. And speaking with folks, that's not unique to here. It's sometimes difficult to find that the patrons for the opera as opposed to the regular rock bands and things like that. But I think it's getting bigger every year, and I think everyone that sees it, a lot of picnics and things like that out there. And we talked about the rotating art. Right now we have the students coming in. Hopefully, I don't know if we've had a chance to coordinate with the artists. I left a message with Mr. Segura, but I haven't heard back. Hopefully, we'll get something when they bring in the new group, because I know he does that quite a bit. Hopefully, we'll get to have them, have a presentation. So going on this year is going to be a very fun year for public art. We had a bit of a gap, but in 2017 the commission recommended 3 projects to the city council, and the city council approved all 3. Currently, the 2 sculptures, the railing, as I mentioned before, I don't know if you can see it in the railing, but there is a whale in there. We let artists be artists, and they said they thought it would be really wonderful to have a whale, and it spans multiple railings. The foam is the sculpture that she's working on, and yes, it's quite a large sculpture. And in May, they're planning on starting the mural. We originally scheduled it with the anticipation of having a rainy season this year, and we could have done it this winter, but it was probably best to wait. So we're going to schedule that for May, and hopefully they'll get started with that and really improve the skate park. If we want to complete these 3 projects, obviously, I think they're going to be fantastic. We're going to continue with the Art and Cultural Commission has had its music selection committee and has already selected the music. Kelly Barretto is busy setting the lineup. That's the big piece of action. We'll have the postcards. Tonight we have a wonderful photograph by a local photographer as the background for the poster this year, the card this year. So that'll be nice. And I believe I forgot to check, but I think we are taking over the movie before Labor Day. In the past, the Begonia Festival had done it, but we're going to be taking that on, and we have the sponsors have agreed to cover that as well. So we're going to have the movie selection committee gets 4 movies this year, and I'm positive after last year they're going to do a fantastic job. So I've said in my presentation. Any questions? Yes.
How are the artists chosen for the plein air show? You have 80 applicants, or this year we have 100.
So we have there is a subcommittee. It includes both commissioners as well as and they actually review, and they do the analysis. It's juried, so they independently, and a lot of it they look to see if they've been at other shows out there. The goal is to have folks that are widely known, that produce great product and have the possibility of bringing people in. So it's a juried process. So
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? That's good. Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much.
And I believe that brings us to the end of our meeting. So on that note, They made you stay for the entire meeting? What school? Usually the students are sneaking out at about 7:45. What school are you from? All from SoCal High. Excellent.
Yeah.
Do you want to come up and talk to us, or do you want to just be anonymous?
I'd like to know what you